Good evening. I'm Valerie Feit, Co-Director of School Counseling. On behalf of Co-Director Corinne Ryan and our high school counselors, Amanda Menke, Susan Hannon, and Evan Miller, along with high school principal Tina Wilson, we welcome you to the kickoff of college application season. With the link you used to view this event, there was an email address which you can use to send us your questions. We will make every effort to answer them. However, if you have personal concerns that relate to your student, we suggest you contact your school counselor. Seniors, finally, after all the work you've done, you are ready to take the steps necessary to open a whole new chapter of your lives. And this chapter is starting in a new normal world that at this point is unpredictable. However, this too will pass, and what is important is that you continue to focus on school, apply to college, and go. This year, there are as many opportunities as there are challenges. Take those opportunities and meet the challenges of this season with courage, knowledge, and fortitude. To do this requires that you keep moving forward without getting caught up in assumptions. As a result of this pandemic, there have been some major shifts in the attitudes and behaviors of college-bound students. Simpson Scarborough, a marketing research firm, has surveyed college-bound and current college students and reports that 26% of college students do not plan to return to the college they were attending. International students, who comprise 14% of college students nationally, may not return to college in the United States. 10% of this year's past high school seniors have made alternative plans for this fall, and gap years have gained in popularity. With all these metrics averaged, many colleges and universities anticipate a 20% decline in enrollment. This is a huge impact, and it may threaten the existence of a number of schools. It also means that there are opportunities now that may not have existed in the past. Some colleges require students who take a gap year this year to reapply to college next year. I have not encountered any evidence that suggests that this will create a logjam in a year from now. That shared, none of us has a crystal ball. And so the only option is to see this season as a chance to succeed and stretch yourselves. What about college applications? In March, every high school that closed individually decided on how to grade. This means that stable grades that were earned prior to the pandemic are important to substantiating your GPA, which remains the primary metric that colleges use to assess your academic performance. AP test scores, SAT, and ACT scores have highlighted demographic gaps, and colleges are grappling with how to weight those measures. At this time, 1,600 colleges that normally would have accepted SAT or ACT have announced that these measures are optional, and as the number of students who are locked out of tests grows, more colleges will turn away from these standardized tests. To find out which colleges are test optional, be sure to use the link we sent you to check the National Association of College Admissions Counselors, or NACAC, to see testing status lists that include most colleges and universities in the United States. So what does count? After GPA, rigor of your program, how did you challenge yourself based on the quality and depth of your high school courses, followed by Regents and AP results, and SAT and ACT if asked for, and if those scores are available. The fourth most important element in your application are the ways that you have demonstrated character, how you've added value to your family and community during high school and during school closure. If you took care of siblings or a grandparent, that counts. If you volunteered or did a project to bring people together, that counts. Your school counselor's letter now is more important than ever this year. We are extremely proud of our letter process, which is collaborative between our counselors and exceptionally strong. Give your essay and supplemental essays extra attention, as in tandem with counselors and teachers and what they say about you, your voice speaks for your character and accomplishments. As you work on your essays, please emphasize how what you have accomplished reflects ethical values and character. Demonstrated interest remains a very important factor, and everything you do online is tracked. Be sure to answer emails, respond to texts from admissions professionals, and take care to not let too much time pass. Prospective analytics have become incredibly sophisticated in the last 5 years. Before you even apply to college, it's likely that you have been given an index number on a 100-point scale that considers many factors in your life, as well as information about your parents' and guardians' lives. Some colleges are even using AI to review essays. So COVID and AI are both the new normal. So join in our virtual college visits. We have over 95 colleges and universities available to you in online meetings, and many of the hosts are the people who will read your applications. Get to know them, write to them, send them a thank you note. How do you succeed in this new environment? The answer is communicate, communicate, communicate. Communicate with your parents, college admissions counselors, and most of all, your school counselors. With a hybrid school schedule, it's easy to let days and weeks slip by. Don't do that. We need to let them know what you need. You need to let them know what you want, and make an appointment, hand in your brag sheet. We must work together. This year is different, and it can be full of promise. And pandemic or not, this is your future, so grab it and don't let go. And now we're going to hear from Evan Miller.
Mr. Miller, you're on mute.
So the biggest question here is, how do I apply? There are many different ways to go through the application process when we are looking at our colleges. And the first and largest and most common is the Common Application. I like to refer to this as almost a one-stop shop for colleges, and where you can fill out your information at one time, select all of the colleges you'd like to apply to, and send them off in one group. There are over 900 colleges in all 50 states and multiple countries as part of the Common Application. And again, we've had our students actually fill out the Common Application and gotten started on that. The Coalition Application is very similar. There is a much smaller number of schools as part of the Coalition Application, but again, you fill the information out in one place and then send off your information and your application to these schools. Some systems, like the SUNY system and the CUNY system, have their own specific application. This can be found within their websites. And again, if you're applying to multiple SUNY schools or multiple CUNY schools, you fill out the application, select which schools you are looking to apply to, and send them off. Lastly, there are specific school applications, such as for the University of California school system, that they have their own application process for their entire system. So again, with that, you can apply through their system in one place and ship them all out. These different methods of application submission, it actually helps to make life as simple as possible, where it keeps them all in one place and keeps you very organized. And it'll actually show on our student Naviance accounts what application service these schools will utilize. Next slide. So when do you apply? There are so many different admissions plans and different names for them that I'm sure you've all heard about, and some can be very confusing, so we'll definitely be able to lay that out for you. The biggest, most important one that we get asked all the time is early decision. Early decision and early decision 2, which we'll talk about in a moment, are binding contracts to the university that you apply to. With early decision, if there's a school that you've had a dream of attending, a school that you've always wanted to be at, and you've known this for a fact, you can apply early decision, thus showing not only showing demonstrated interest to these schools, saying that if you accept me, no matter what the financial cost, no matter what, I will attend your university. With that early decision too, not all schools offer it, but it could be used as a nice way. It's usually a little bit later than the early decision deadlines, and it's a nice way to continue working on your academics, which can improve over time, while still committing and showing that interest in that university or college. Early decision deadlines, very often you'll find late in or rather in the middle of the fall, some of them falling October 15th or November 1st, and some early deadlines are in early December. Early action brings us to a whole different set of admissions plans. Early action is a non-binding agreement. The most important piece is that you can apply early and find out early with no commitment. This is not the case, though, if you see a school with early action restricted or single choice early action. What these mean, it's almost a combination of the early decision and early action deadlines, where you can still only apply to one school. So with that, non-binding, but you can apply to no other schools in these early rounds. Regular decision and rolling decision are also non-binding decision plans that you can make. These typically fall later in the winter, or also sometimes early spring, as late as February. And with this, again, non-binding contract, and you can choose to do these if you're not interested with our early decision plans. We always advise earlier is always a great thing for multiple reasons. If a school has early action, it's something that I typically like to advise, as it makes for a few different pieces. Almost makes for a less stressful senior year, as you'll find out earlier and can start making your plans for your college decision earlier on, which could be a helpful piece. On top of that, it also, as Dr. Feit was saying, will help to show your demonstrated interest in the school, which colleges, again, do track as per those analytics that we had mentioned. So earlier, the better, as always. Early decision, to reiterate, is something that you'll do if you are 100% committed to that school and will only apply to one. From there are all the non-binding options that kind of progress through the fall, winter, and then early spring. Be sure to pay attention to separate deadlines for different specific programs like honors programs, portfolio auditions, or scholarships. Next slide.
Okay, so thank you, Mr. Miller, and good evening, everyone. Once you've considered all of the application options Mr. Miller spoke about, it's time to apply. All of you will be applying online, either at the school's website, through the CUNY or SUNY application, or by using the Common App or the Coalition app. You all started the Common Application last year in the College and Career Preparation course. And most, if not all of you, have rolled it over to the 2020-2021 application season. In order for your counselor to send your school materials online, you must fill out the FERPA release authorization on the Common Application, and then log into your Naviance account to match that account to your Common App account. Under FERPA on the Common App, we recommend that you waive your right to access letters of recommendation, as this indicates to the colleges that the information sent on your behalf is confidential between RINEC and the schools that you're applying to. Under FERPA, some of you may have seen invite recommenders via the Common Application. You do not need to do this since we use Naviance. For those of you who may have done so already, it's okay, no worries, but anyone moving forward does not need to do this on the Common App site. If you do have an outside letter of recommendation, you will use this feature on Common App, and we ask that you see your counselor individually to work through this process. You must also officially request your transcript using Naviance. You must complete this as well as the FERPA release authorization in order for your counselor to send your school materials. Without these two steps completed, we cannot submit anything on your behalf. We ask that you request transcripts at least 2 weeks before your application is due. So for instance, if you have a November 1 deadline, you should request your transcript via Naviance by October 15th. You should also follow up with your counselor individually to ensure we're on the same page. The The counselors came into social studies classes yesterday and today to show you how to complete the FERPA release and to match your Common App to your Naviance account, as well as move you forward in the process. If you were absent, still have questions, or need assistance with this, please see your counselor. When using any of the applications, be prepared to fill out supplements for each school you are applying to. Every school has its own requirements and protocol when applying, so make sure you read everything carefully and thoroughly. It is important that you review your application several times, especially focusing on punctuation, spelling, grammar, etc. Your counselor will be happy to review each application before submission. You can schedule an in-person meeting or a Google Meet with your counselor to work through your application process. Please organize your time and plan accordingly, since you are only in school 2 to 3 times a week for in-person meetings. So in other words, please avoid waiting until the last minute to see us. Once you have completed the FERPA authorization and requested transcripts, now it's our turn. What do? We are responsible for sending several items on your behalf. The transcript. You can view your transcript on the student and parent portal, so make sure you take a look very carefully. Let us know if there are any discrepancies. We also send the secondary school report and the school profile. These are documents that provide colleges with detailed information about Rhinebeck, which in turn allows them to understand where you fit in the context of our school. We are also responsible for sending the counselor letter of recommendation, as well as your teacher recommendations. And Ms. Hannon will discuss important steps in regard to teacher recommendations. As you've been utilizing for a few years now, Naviance is a way to research, organize, and track the college process. Please make note that the counseling department will continue to use Naviance as a way to enhance our communication with you. As we've been doing, we will send you emails through Naviance reminding you of meetings, college fairs, scholarship opportunities, upcoming deadlines, virtual college visits, and more. Parents, if you have not registered with Naviance, please get in touch with your child's counselor and we'll be happy to get you on board. Also, students and parents, if you have a new email address, please make sure to update this on Naviance so you are receiving our correspondence. Speaking of email addresses, we highly recommend you create a separate email account strictly for the college process. This way you do not miss any important information sent to you by colleges. Now we talk money. So we all know money is an important aspect of the college process. For many of you, applying for financial aid is a crucial part of the process, with the FAFSA being the premier application you need to fill out. The FAFSA is the free application for student federal aid. Please note that it is free, so you do not have to pay for this application. There are websites that look similar to the FAFSA website, which are scams and make you pay for the application. So please make sure you're going to the GotGov website. You are able to file the FAFSA starting October 1st. The first step for both students and parents is to apply for your FSA ID. The FSA ID is essentially an electronic signature that you need in order to submit the FAFSA. We have several links on the Rhinebeck Counseling website, which are good resources to use in terms of financial aid. Depending on what schools you're applying to, you may need to also fill out the CSS profile. The CSS profile is an online application that collects information used by certain colleges and scholarship programs to award institutional aid funds. Some schools will require you to fill this application out, which is located on the College Board website. On the website, you will find a list of schools that use the CSS profile. So please note, it is your responsibility to know whether any of the schools you are applying to require this. Individual colleges may require their own additional financial aid forms. So remember, carefully read all application requirements to every school you're applying to. The counseling department hosted a financial aid meeting tonight prior to this meeting. Stacy Salinas, Director of Financial Aid at Dominican College, presented. On October 22nd at 7 p.m., we will host a financial aid presentation in Spanish. Richard Alvarez, Vice President of Enrollment at CUNY Queens College, will be presenting that evening. Lastly, there are many scholarships available to students. A comprehensive website to use when researching scholarships is FastWeb, which there's also a link on our counseling website to the FastWeb site. At FastWeb, you are able to create a profile which then matches certain scholarships to you. Each college has their own scholarship opportunities, which can be found on their respective websites. In regards to scholarships that are sent to Rhinebeck and available to pick up here, you can check online at Naviance, the counseling website, the bulletin board outside of the attendance, and of course, your best resource is Mrs. Kane, who is at the front desk as soon as you enter the counseling suite. So every year I say, get to know Mrs. Kane, chat with her, become her best friend, because she's a great resource in terms of scholarship opportunities that come through Rhinebeck. So as you hear throughout this evening, details are key components to this process. Therefore, I highly recommend finding an organizational system that works for you to ensure that every part of the application process is complete. And remember, if you have any questions along the way, please see us. I'm now handing you over to Ms. Hannon.
Hi, everyone. Nice to see. Oh, you can only see us. We can't see you. Well, hi. Nice to see you. Glad we get a chance to show our faces to all of you, especially our students that we see throughout the day with our masks on. So hello and welcome. I think there's a couple keywords we heard tonight, and I hope you take advantage of it. And that is see your counselor. I think everybody that has spoken so far has said, see your counselor. We mean it. We want to see you. We want to help. That's what we're here for. And that's why we love our jobs. Okay. So my part here is to talk about a checklist. Those of you who have been in to see me know that this is what I'm all about. We talk, we make checklists, you take a picture, you go home, you share it with your parents, you come back, we check things off. That's my organization tool, and I'm happy to share that with you. So let's talk about what's on the actual checklist. So the first thing is to review your transcript. Okay, you've had the same transcript since 8th grade or 9th grade if you came later, or 10th grade, or whenever you joined us. It will be up on the portal tomorrow. If it hasn't been already, and your counselors have taken the time to review it. So it should be right, but it is your transcript. So make sure you take a look at it and make sure everything looks like it's in line. And if not, say it together, see your counselor. Okay. Next, when you're ready, and everybody's at a different part of this process. Some of you did a lot of work over the summer and applied to college and are ready to go with our stuff. Some of you haven't had a chance to look at this yet, just not there, and that's okay. You have plenty of time. And some of you might be in the middle. So whenever you're ready, make an initial appointment with us, and we will share all of the things that you need to know to get ready to meet with us a second time, and maybe even a third time before your applications are due. Mr. Miller mentioned all of the application deadlines. So if you have a deadline coming up, come see us sooner rather than later. But again, everybody's at different points. So don't think you're behind. Don't think you're super ahead. Just know that everybody is okay where you are. The next thing, finish your research. So right now, if you haven't already done so, you should be continuing to research all of the colleges. We know that that's been hard. But you can do virtual visits. You can email questions to admissions counselors. And as mentioned, we have the virtual visits. Dr. Feit mentioned all the virtual visits we have available. You might not like the time because some of them are at 7:50 in the morning, but they are available for you. We just don't want you to miss out on any of your school day since you are only in here every other day at best for school. So take advantage of those. They're before school and they're after school. And your list should be kind of coming up with make sure you have some likelies, Those are schools that your grades are above the middle 50%, then some fits, which are in the 50%, and then certainly reach for any schools that you might be interested in. You're also checking out, the sizes of the schools, whether you want the urban, the suburban, the rural schools, whether they have your major. When you're searching for major, maybe you want to look at the classes that they offer and make sure that those classes sound interesting. So this is how you're starting to narrow it down. You had a very broad search in the spring and maybe over the summer, but now it's really down to get into the big details and the little details and figure out, does each college that's going to be on your list have everything that you're looking for? You also want to make sure and perhaps have a conversation, can you afford the college? Because that's certainly a big piece of going off to college. Although financial aid is readily available, as Ms. Mankey said, talk to Mrs. Kane and do your own individual research. So that also took care of the final list check. So look at that. I checked 2 boxes at once. The next one is going to be updating your resume. All of the juniors submitted a resume in your college and career prep class last year. That was back in December, though. And a lot has changed since then. We understand that maybe there weren't as many ample opportunities in the spring for you to take advantage of, but we're sure that you've done something since December. And if you haven't, again, that's okay. We just want to have an update. So get us an updated resume. You can share that with us. That would be very helpful. And then the forms, Dr. Fite alluded to one of the forms, which is the parent brag sheet. Parents, you have a form to fill out. Students, you have a form to fill out. Okay. And then those along with your resume really help us in writing your letter of recommendation. We know you pretty well. Mr. Miller, yeah, he's the new guy, but he's working really hard and he's getting to know you pretty quickly. And we will do our best to write the best letter we can, but your input is definitely welcome. And we hope we do get it from you. It's an opportunity for you to write down some things that you really think should be in the letter, and we will do our best to incorporate the ones that fit. Okay, so for registering for final testing, Dr. Fite also alluded to this. This is probably the worst part of the year, part of the process for you, because it's been so difficult and frustrating, and we totally get you. And almost every college that will be on your list will be test optional. So if you haven't registered, you haven't registered. Okay, it is what it is. If you can't take it, you can't take it. You can only control the controllables. So just remember that throughout the entire process. If you do plan on sending test scores because you have taken it, I would just like to remind you that you have to send your test scores. We don't have access to your test scores, just so you know. You have them through College Board and through the ACT. Only you can do that. You sometimes can self-report them and we'll take you through that process, but you have to send them. Okay. Just remember that. It's something that people don't remember and it takes a little bit of time for them to get there. So if you are done testing, send those out as soon as possible if they're going to be part of your application. What else we've got? Requests for letters of recommendation. Okay. We would think that you would like to ask 2 core teachers to write you letters of recommendation. You may have an elective teacher that you're very close to and have spent a lot of time in their electives. You may have a coach who you've been very close to, or an advisor. Those are good, and you can certainly ask them, but those will be mostly used for character references, which character is a big part of the application, as Dr. Fite alluded to earlier as well. But let's try and get 2 core teachers, and preferably someone who's taught you last year or this year. Also, given that we've had this COVID year, 10th grade would be okay. It's not the best because you've grown as a student since then, but I think that will be acceptable given the circumstances of this year. Give your teachers plenty of time. Like Ms. Mankey said, give us at least 2 weeks. You definitely want to give your teachers at least 2 weeks. Your teachers are preparing for your classes every day, and they probably have a list of students that they will be writing for. So you want to make sure that you give them ample amount of time to write the best that they can. The longer you wait, the closer to the deadline, it might not be their best effort. And that is certainly not what you want, especially when letters of recommendation mean so much as part of your application. If you can, pick 2 disciplines, not necessary, because you do want to pick the teachers who know you best and will write the best about you. But 2 different disciplines could show strengths in 2 different areas, which being a well-rounded student is always a positive thing. And just one other final point with these, sometimes we can only send one letter of rec. But it's okay to have two. We'll just talk to you and discuss with you about which one that you want to send to any college that only will accept just one letter. And actually some don't want any, but most do want to hear from your teachers. Oh, and finally, don't pressure them. Ask them once, check in nicely. And if it's still not done as we get super close to your application deadline, maybe then talk to us and we'll talk to them. Okay, you don't want to pressure them. Okay, that's the left side. The right side, schedule interviews. Colleges were kind of scaling back the interview process, but this year they may be more willing to do virtual interviews. Some campuses are open for interviews. If you know that you would be good at an interview and you have the opportunity to schedule it, I highly advise that you do so. This is just another chance for you to show them who you are, not just on paper. Some of them are with alumni, so those may be, at a local coffee shop or an outside picnic table, whatever their choice would be at this time. And others may be on campus and some may be virtual. So be prepared for interviewing with a variety of people, even students, current students you may be interviewing with. Visit college campuses. I know, Ms. Hannon, we can't really do that. Actually, some campuses do have small, limited tours going on. So you still have a chance to have that opportunity to get on the campus at some campuses. Again, your safety is of most concern. So be careful what your choices are. And be careful when you are on those visits if that is the case. And remember that there are restrictions for visiting out of state and coming back into state. So keep that in mind as well if that's something you plan to do. Otherwise, virtual visits are great, especially virtual visits where you can register for. The last thing you want is for your application to show up on the desk of an admissions officer and that be the first time they've heard from you. So anytime you can register and get your name out there, that would be very, very, very helpful. We have our virtual visits that Dr. Fight again alluded to. There are a ton of them, so make sure you go out to those. Those you do have to register for. So that would be a good idea. I've been on a couple of them myself, and I think they've been very interactive, and a lot of information is being shared both ways. And I think that's a really, really, really good idea. Okay, in the spring, you worked on your college essay in your English class, and it was a grade. Sometimes I think it might have even been your final exam. That was a good start. It could be a finish. You might be done and you're really happy with it. Some you might not like it at all, and you need to start over again, and some just need to tweak or edit it. So that's something you should be working on right now. Will go on the Common App. So that's the main writing portion of the Common App. And then some colleges do have supplemental essays, and those are additional essays that they want to know a little bit more from you about. And remember, this is, again, just one of those few chances that you get a chance to express yourself other than checking off boxes or filling out demographic information. So I would put as much time into the supplemental essays as you do personal essays. I've heard numerous times those questions, why Siena College? And those of you who have had me in college and career prep, you know that that's where I went. I always use it as an example. You want to come up with the best reasons as to why Siena College. And what most college reps say, if I took the name of the college out and could I replace it with something else and it would still sound the same? That's not a good answer to that question. You want to really do your research and get in and talk about each school personally as to why you want to go there, and not just because it's got your major, it's in a big city, it's got great student life, good college spirit, that you can replace the name with anything. So make that personal. Again, especially without testing, if you're not sending testing, and that could be a big part of your application. Make note of your deadlines. Mr. Miller talked about some of your deadlines. This is going to be, again, your responsibility. We are definitely here to help and can show you how you can get your deadlines onto Naviance. If you haven't already seen them, we can help you with that. But make sure you know those so you can come up with a nice timeline and not be rushed. This process is not as difficult as many think it is, but it can be if you're just not organized. So let's make sure we get organized and have those deadlines ready. Just as an aside for your community service, make sure you do complete your 40 hours of community service this year. If you have done it and you haven't handed it in, let's make sure you do that because that can't graduate without it. So let's make sure we handle that part. That's not part of the college application process, but I like to throw that out there. Review your applications with your counselor. There it is again, with your counselor, with your counselor. We are here. We want to review your applications line by line. We want to go through your Common App from start to finish and give you any advice that we can and help you with your editing. We've all been doing this for some time, either from the college side or from the high school side. So we know what to look for, and we can certainly help you get the best application ready for you. We can, by the way, do these meetings either in person. We all can follow the social distancing in our offices with masks. And right now we've had the windows open, so that's been a plus. We can also do a Google Meet with you when you're home on remote days. We're happy to do that at any time during the school day. And parents, you're welcome to join in on any meetings through Google Meet if you'd like to be a part of it as well. Just a reminder, we do want to help create independence with the students, but we know that this is really important. So of course we want to include you as well. Ms. Mankey talked about the financial aid piece. So I don't really need to cover too much of that. There is a great resource slide about financial aid that takes you from the very, very beginning of the financial aid process all the way through the end. I found it one of the best articles I've read in years. So I would suggest that you give that a gander when you get a chance. And then finally, Ms. Mankey talked about requesting transcripts on Naviance. That is something we went over yesterday and today, like she said. And as I told the students, you can tell me till you're blue in the face that you want me to send a transcript somewhere. I literally can't do it. I can't click the button, the checkbox on Naviance and send it unless you do that. So that is probably one of the most important steps as you're finishing up the rest of the notes here on your checklist. By the way, if you don't like the style of this checklist, there is a link to the actual checklist in the resource section. You can print it out, put it on the refrigerator, and have fun checking off the boxes. Okay, next slide. Okay, there's the forms that I was talking about. We have most of your transcript release forms, but that's a single page form that you sign allowing us to send your transcript. So it's going to be done electronically and on paper. And it also states that you'll be waiving your rights to read your letters of rec. We explained that to your students today. Like I said, we have most of those, but when we did some at-home junior meetings, they might have gotten lost in the shuffle, or in cases we didn't have printers to print, so we may not have printed them out. So I hope you'll have some patience with us there. If you did fill it out, it'll take 2 seconds to give that back to us. The parent data sheet personal data sheet I talked about, the parent brag sheet, and the updated resume. So we want to get those as soon as possible, like the heading says. The sooner we get those letters, all of that information, the sooner we can start writing your letter, and that gives us plenty of time to write those special letters of recommendation for you too. And the last slide is, for me, is going to be the testing slide, and that is I don't even know what to call it, but it's an ever-changing, frustrating register, can't go, register, can go, register, have to travel. So we just gave you the link. It was just much easier just to say, here's a link, the dates are on there, the registration dates are there, the payment is there, the dates for the tests, where the tests are offered, it's all there. And that's going to be your most updated information versus us actually giving you dates like we normally would. I would probably refer to these because they will be the most updated way to find out what is coming up. But I would like to say again, most colleges are test optional. And maybe sometime for some of you, it's a good time to take advantage of that. And some of you, of course, if you're a good test taker, that's going to be the flip side. Okay. I think that's all for me. Dr. Feit, I think we're back over to you.
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Miller and Ms. Mankey and Ms. Hannon. It was really interesting. We received quite a few questions on our email link, so we want to see if we can get to some of those. If we don't know the answers, if something is changing very quickly, we will get back to you. And if it's a personal concern, we'll make sure that you connect with your counselor, and you can certainly give your counselor a call. So I'm going to ask for Corinne Ryan, if she is on, she is collecting the questions. So if somebody could maybe just give her a heads up that we're ready to take those questions.
I'm here.
Okay, great.
Question number 1. When is the early action deadline for SUNYs?
So I'll take that. It varies. It may be November 1st for some of them. It could be November 15th or even December 1st. So it really, that's where it's important when I mentioned before to look at each school, come up with that organization system. So maybe create a Google sheet of the schools that you're interested in and what their deadlines are for early action, regular decision, rolling, whatever it may be. So your earliest one would be November 1st.
Okay, next question. Do we need to fill both FAFSA and CSS profile even if not applying for financial aid?
I'll take that one. Every college rep that we speak to says even if you're not applying for financial aid, you should fill out the FAFSA, because you never know. There's not a lot of them. There's a small handful of schools that actually use the FAFSA for their school aid, so their institutional aid. So that's probably a good idea just to do that. And again, it's free. When it comes to the CSS profile, that form is a lot longer, requires a lot more information, and does cost money. And that is for institutional aid. So I would probably recommend that as well. However, that one is more of a personal decision. If you really don't think you're going to get any aid, okay. But it might be worth reaching out to a college to maybe send your FAFSA first and say, okay, should I do this? And they'll let you know. The CSS profile is the one that, those are your highly competitive, most expensive colleges. So, it may be worth trying to see what they're going to offer, because it could be grants, not necessarily scholarships, academic, athletic, or talent scholarships, but it could be grant money and things like that could come out of the CSS profile. But my advice would be file the FAFSA, and then once they have that data, you can certainly follow up and ask them, will I qualify? Counselors, do you have any other input?
No.
Nope, I think
Okay.
you covered it.
Perfect.
This next question, I believe, is from a parent counselor, since you were in the social studies classes talking about this today and yesterday, and part of the curriculum last year. But someone wants to know, what is Naviance and how do we access it?
I can take that. So Naviance is an online program that we use to research, organize, and track the college process. So if you have not been on Naviance, you just need to email your student's counselor and we'll be happy to get you on board with that site. So we'll actually register you. You'll get an email from Naviance, and you'll have a temporary password, and then you'll be able to create your own password and then have access to the Naviance account.
And your students are familiar with Naviance. Some are not so familiar with remembering their password, as we discovered, but most of them can get on now, and they can tell you what are some of the things that they've done on there. So take the time to sit down. That could be your very first college, meeting with your child, and that could be an interesting one, actually, depending on what schools they've picked and which schools you have in mind for them.
Okay, here's another question. Ms. Mankey's presentation first recommended that students sign the FERPA release authorization and later included advice that RINEC cannot send out recommendations unless the authorization is signed. Does this mean that RINEC will not send out the recommendations unless a student signs a release authorization?
That is correct. So you have to fill out that FERPA release, because that is allowing us to share your personal information. So it also allows us to share the transcript, secondary school report, and the letters of rec. So we do need that FERPA release completed in order to send your materials.
Some students, part of it is whether or not to waive or not waive your right to see your letter of rec. And actually, Mr. Miller, were on the college side. What would a college prefer you to check off?
Yep, a college would absolutely prefer you check off that you waive, specifically being that if you are reaching out to teachers and asking them to write a letter of recommendation on your behalf, they expect that it's someone you've had a great relationship with, and they expect it would be someone who would say great things about you. So on our end, when I was in missions, it's definitely something that we expect is that the students will waive on the FERPA.
And I think that answers the second part of that question. Hi, wondering how AP grades are submitted with applications.
You can self-report those on the Common App. That is the best way. It's under the Test Scores tab on the Common App, and you have an opportunity to self-report any scores, your SAT scores, your ACT scores, subject test scores, and your AP scores. And otherwise, you have to pay and have them sent from the College Board, and you certainly don't want to do that and have to send them to all the colleges that you're applying. It is not good for the colleges to know those scores, but they don't need them yet to decide placement. They may want to see them for admissions purposes right now. So I would highly recommend doing them on the Common App. If a school is not on the Common App, you can always send an email to your admissions rep to get them in your file.
Do interviews happen once applications are submitted, and do the colleges reach out to schedule those?
So I can hop in and take this one. So with interviews, it will be different depending on the colleges. But once a student is on the radar, whether they have applied or whether they've attended one of our virtual visits, then once they apply, the colleges will reach out recommending interviews. Some schools will require them. Some schools will go ahead and say we recommend them. If I was to give my input, it's just another great piece of the application for colleges to use. It makes it another piece to the puzzle, make it a very holistic piece of the application process. So I always say it's a great idea to hop on an interview. It just helps when the admissions representative is reading the application and that name pops up and it's a familiar name and they can match a face to that name. It's something that's a benefit to the students. So once a student applies, then the interview process will begin.
How are 529 plans considered as part of the financial aid process, and could having one exclude opportunities for assistance?
That's a good question.
Might that be better suited for Stacy?
Yeah, I think that's really a question for someone who has a really intimate knowledge of what is going on in the college process in the finance area. So I would say that would be something to direct toward Stacy Salinas.
Okay, so we will get back to you. I have your email. We will stay tuned. We'll get back to you. We'll reach out and see if we can get some information for you on that question.
Yeah, it's just a little bit more personal on, just so you.
Right.
So.
A question: what is the parent brag sheet?
Just what it sounds like. It's a time for you to sing the praises of your son or daughter. Although I think there's one question that says, what are they not so good at? But it's just really a great opportunity for you to answer some questions that we've provided and provide information that either solidifies what we know about them, gives us some insight of stuff that maybe we weren't so aware of. I would like to say that we know your students very well, but we don't know every intimate detail. And you could have a great story or an anecdote that is going to liven up our letter that will just totally we might have the adjectives or something to say about them. But gosh, if you got something, fun to add to it or super important that you want in it, it's your chance to give us some things that maybe you even want to have in there. We actually ask you, if you could write the first paragraph of the letter of rec, what would you say? Now, I'm not saying we use that verbatim, but we do take into consideration some of the things that you really want us to share with the colleges. And so it's your opportunity to give us really good input And when we take all of the other pieces, I think that's what makes crafting the letter fun for us. And what makes it even better is when we have input from the student and the parent and the teachers and the coaches and the music directors and the club advisors and the, the religious authorities, whoever it is. When we can pull in all those pieces, we have a complete picture, and this is your time to brag.
I just want to add that if you go onto the district website and you look under departments, you'll see school counseling. You probably know that. There's a lot of links right on the front homepage, but on the left-hand side, you will also see some additional links, one of which is documents. And if you go in there, you'll be able to find some of the pieces to this pie, and you'll be able to find the brag sheet.
Okay. If a student doesn't have an SAT score, do you recommend sending in the PSAT score?
I probably wouldn't.
No, I think that, the PSAT is really at a different point in a student's education. You can always call a college admissions office and ask, or send an email to a counselor, but I would say probably not.
If they didn't have a chance, they didn't prepare for the PSAT. Most students did not prepare for the PSAT. So the score would probably be lower than what the score perhaps would have been. I do say, though, I think some colleges, and again, probably a very small percentage, are looking and grasping for something. But if it's like required, I would probably stay away from that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think your time is much well spent, as opposed to submitting that. Really, if there are supplemental essays, or if there's not even that main essay, really, putting forth the time and effort into that, where I think instead of a score and the number, I always say the essay and your supplements are where you come alive in the process. You get them away from the numbers and the test score and the numbers on the transcript. So I probably wouldn't use the PSAT score or advise that.
I'm just going to go piggyback that and agree with it, just to say that there is a section to kind of go with that idea of there's other aspects you can utilize to make yourself stand out. There is a section of additional information or additional piece that I always advise students in the admission side and as a school counselor to fill out. It just gives you, again, another piece that maybe there's something you want to tell us, tell us the representatives rather, that may not be reflected in any other piece of the application. And it's a phenomenal place for students to include essentially anything that they want in that. So I would definitely put that effort toward that instead of with like the PSAT, as we were saying.
And this looks to be like the last question. Where do we find the transcript release form?
Same place where Dr. Fight just sent you.
Go to our website, go and look for documents, and you'll find, again, it's the department page, and it is on the left, and there's a list. You'll find documents, and you'll find a lot of things that you need right there.
These were great questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we just,
I'm
sorry, Ms. Hannah.
I said, I feel like I was put to the test. I hope we passed.
Well, I just want to say thank you to all of you who've watched. We're really excited to work with you. Please get in touch with us, and we look forward to a really successful season. So we're here, and good night. Thanks.
Good night, everyone. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. See you soon. Hopefully.
Bye, guys.